districts have been trying to figure out exactly what that means, and we've been forced into the pivot. So we've been doing it in small ways up to this point and never did Rotary count on the pivot being forced on us. These last 7 months have been challenging for all of us, but being the people of actions that we are, Rotary District 7930 has completed many projects within our communities. We have provided PPE for the frontline workers. We've supported our local food pantries to assist with the food insecurity issues all of our communities are facing right now. Many of our clubs have been supporting the elders in their communities by either doing weekly telephone calls or teaching them how to use technology so that they can stay in touch with their loved ones, or even just to have telehealth appointments. And also supporting our schools with the transition into the new normal, which is very challenging for all families. I just want to say, keep doing what you're doing. Listen this evening to the folks who will be sharing ideas with you and ask questions. That's what this is about. We're all here to share with one another so that we can learn different ways of doing things. We're here to assist all of you so that this year can be as successful as past years. We can do this one step at a time and by supporting one another. This year, Rotary International and Toastmasters started a partnership. And I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to Connor Lapresi. I had the opportunity to talk to Connor last week briefly, and I have to tell you, in our short phone call, he impressed me tremendously. And I look forward to his energy and his inspiration this evening. Connor is originally from the Finger Lakes of Central New York. And Connor has considered himself a storyteller since being casted as a storyteller in the North Street Elementary School play. He claims to still be in character. With a degree in communications from Cornell University, Connor was a member of the varsity wrestling team, excuse me, I have a frog, and is where he first experienced public speaking as a conduit for change. Post-grad, he quickly became involved with Toastmasters by entering and advancing in multiple competitions, as well as become his club's VP of membership and eventually president. I introduce you to Connor Lapresi, who is the area director and now his club president of the Last Word Toastmasters in Burlington. Connor, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. That was a great intro. I got to give a shout out to the Thursday Toast, the group at Burlington. I think I see some of my members here, Tommy and Mark. So thank you for coming, and Lexi as well. Oh, and Pujita. So yeah, we have a tight knit group for sure. We got 15 minutes. I'm going to cover today. Alex, if you could allow me to share my screen, and I'll get it going. But
yep, oh, should be ready now.
Karen, another Cornellian, good. We always seem to run into each other one way or another. So here we are. Basically, I'm going to break this up into 3 5-minute groups. So first, I wanted to start about talking about Rotary from my perspective. So in lieu of an introduction, I wanted to talk about influential Rotarians in my life and kind of how I got to learn about Rotary and what a Rotarian was. Kind of the theme of the forum today is to talk about the things to propel Rotary into the future and kind of make that change and get a lot of newer people to join and become Rotaries and also just learn what you guys are doing. So when I first encountered a Rotary, or a Rotarian rather, this is what I saw. So this is a clown on a motorcycle with a fireman's hat on, which is quite possibly the most ridiculous scenario you can imagine. This is my hometown carnival, and it looked just as rinky-dink as it does in this picture. The rides were like 4 tickets, and there were 3 rides, and none of them were really fun. But you rode every single one of them because it was the town carnival, and that's what we had. Um, so I guess taking a step back with how I found myself at this carnival, uh, long story short, because we do have a lot of things to cover. At the age of 15, I was a very competitive wrestler, and I realized that I needed to pursue that as a way to catapult myself to a eventual Division One college and all around future. And I knew that wrestling was going to be able to do that. So I made a decision to leave home. I emancipated myself and my family and moved to the town of Lansing, New York. And at the summer carnival, my very first summer there, before I started school, kind of the first time I lived in a efficiency apartment, which is a really nice way of saying kind of like a hole in the wall. Uh, and I paid for it myself through construction working, odd jobs, cans, everything you can imagine. And I saw this guy at the town carnival, and I was just kind of hanging out because I had nothing better to do. And he seemed awesome. He was full of life. He was just more than just a clown. He was funny, but I could also tell he was intelligent. He wrapped balloons, and he was really just like captivating. He was an entertainer. He was performing. And I stuck around, and I met the guy who was under the makeup behind the mask. And I realized that he was actually a very influential person in his community. He was more than just a clown. He was a leader. He was an influencer. And this is a Rotarian by the name of Frank Towner, who is the president of the Ithaca Rotary last year, and this year he's in charge of the trust fund. And his main goals is membership increase, youth exchange, and international work. And those are kind of the 3 prongs that I've been pursuing myself, but in Toastmasters. So coming to my senior year, sorry, Frank Towner, I was kind of like looking for different places to live. And this is after I had met him and we came to know each other. And he realized that, I was kind of late on the ball, and I was struggling to find an apartment that fit my price range and was okay with a 17-year-old kid living there alone. And he took it upon himself to kind of alleviate that stress, and he opened his doors and let me live with him and his 2 kids for my senior year in high school. And he was a farmer, a humble farmer they call him, and he had 22 sheep, 2 alpacas, and about a dozen chickens, and a big stack of wood that was my responsibility. And I worked hard, and it was some of the most enjoyable and just influential work I've ever done in my life. And the craziest part about this whole story is that I didn't know that Frank Towner was a Rotarian until I called him on his birthday about 3 weeks ago and told him that I was going to be speaking at this, which I thought was crazy. It just never came up. He was involved in his YMCA. I knew him as, Crossroads the Clown. This is who he was to me. He wasn't a Rotarian. This wasn't until much later. And so what I'm going to try to do is, and I kind of take that as a real sign that the goal here and what I want to change is more people to know who Rotarians are, what Rotarians do, and the real change that they can bring in people. And that, it is a community of people who change the world by starting in their community and kind of going from the ground up. So that's Rotary for me. That's what I thought of when I was asked to come and speak today. And I really liked it because Rotary seems like such a honest endeavor. I love your motto. I myself am trying to go after a life of service, and I feel like a lot of people my age today are Rotarians. They just don't know it yet. I believe it is trendy to do behavior that is typical to a Rotarian. I believe that it is popular to care about the civil good and to want your community to thrive and to kind of enact that change through civil service. I believe people want to go out and do things that make a change. And they just don't know that Rotary really exists yet. And hopefully through Toastmasters, we can begin to change that, which transitions to our second portion. So let's see if we're on time, we should be around 5 minutes right now, excuse me. But when coming to terms of kind of to introduce Toastmasters for you guys, I'm a firm believer in showing and not telling. So I'm going to deliver a quick message, a speech that I've been working on for a while. It's part of my progression to become a quote unquote distinguished Toastmaster. And that is, a very sought after title. It's right up there with Rotarian in my eyes. And hopefully you guys enjoy it. My goal for this speech is to inspire. I plan on, anybody can be inspired by this message, but I focus specifically on youth and athletes also, kind of drawing on my wrestling background and as a coach. So that's what we're going to do. So you guys are going to listen to a little message, and then we'll have some time for Q&A after. But buckle in, because you're going to have to learn something, and it's a little late. It's almost 7:30. Most people are done learning at this time of the day, but it's not going to be you. Okay, so this is a dashboard. We're going to learn about red lines. We're going to learn about cars. Everybody has a car in their driveway right now. I would be surprised if you have more than half a tank of gas, because who's driving it really right now? But this is when it first started. This is the dashboard of a 1955 Chevy Bel Air. It's what my dad had. It was blue, and he drove it around. He cried when he sold it because he had 5 kids, because we're Italian and we do that. But if you notice at the instrumentation, you have your water pressure, your speed, your oil, the voltage, because the batteries were a little finicky back then, and your fuel. And that wasn't enough for people, right? They didn't like it. They didn't know when they were shifting. They couldn't quite hear it. They were grinding the gears. So people said, okay, engineers gave them this. And it included your RPM gauge and your red line. And everybody has a car, and you could tell a lot about a person by the car they drive. And there's all those different analogies. And I really think it's true. And I'm going to beat that into the ground today. And that we really are pretty much like cars. And just like cars, we have our limits, we have our instrumentation, and it's our obligation to look at that and to be aware of that as we go down the road and throughout life. So this RPM point, if you look at around 6,500, right, because it's times 1,000, so that's 6,500. That is the max performance of the car. It's kind of like when you're going down a hill on a bike and you're just pedaling like crazy. Your engine's not getting as much output. You have 2 options. You either slow down or you shift. If you don't, well, you're going to explode your engine. And like every car, every person has their red line. It's the most farthest point you can go before it just stops working for you. So I want you to think right now, and I'm going to pause because I really do want you to think about the last time you have redlined. When's the last time you tried for as hard as you can, for as long as you can? What did that feel like? What was it? Was it a physical exercise, or was it sitting and listening to someone yap about something you didn't care about, and that brought you to your red line? What was it? How long ago was it? And how did you feel afterward? Were you proud? Were you annoyed that you had to redline? Okay, are you bringing yourself up to that point? And these are all questions that you could also talk about a car, right? When talking about how the car is performing, how can you bring it up a lot? Because if you've had a beater for a while, I drive a 1994 Cadillac with 28,000 miles on it. I'm sorry, 228,000 miles on it. And that thing, you can't get it above like 5,500 or else it'll explode. But you just have to know your machine. So then cars got even crazier. They said, all right, that's cool, but like, what if you put a rocket engine on it? And this is the dashboard of a Lamborghini Gallardo. I think it's a 2010. And if you look at that red line, that's at 8,500, meaning that engine can go way faster for way longer before it redlines. It's a completely different kind of system. Even the miles per hour goes up to 220. It's still a car, but it's just a little bit just set up a little bit differently. This right here is a tractor trailer. The numbers look a little different because it's times not 1,000, but times 100. So that's 4,000 is as high as it goes. That's not even halfway up on the Lamborghini. But if you were to say that a Lamborghini was a better car than a tractor trailer, I would have to ask you, when's the last time you tried to pull something really heavy really far away? And I've seen the snows here in Massachusetts. And you're not going to ask your friend with a Lamborghini to pull you out of a ditch if you find yourself in one on the way home. So let's jump back to people. Because we all want to drive a Lamborghini. Like, we all want to be a high adrenaline, on the spot redliner. We always like being that person. We may want to be, or pushed to made to feel that we have to be that, but that's not really all the case, because you very well could be a little bit lower of a red line and be perfectly helpful and have your value and have the things that you're good at. And if you look at a Lamborghini and you're a tractor trailer and you think, well, I'm not good enough because, well, look how high their red line is. Well, maybe you're not doing the right things to your skill set. Maybe you're trying to drag race when you red line at 4,000 RPMs. It's just not going to work. And that's when you start to spin your wheels. Spinning your wheels is when you're redlining, but you're not going anywhere. You look down at your instrumentation, you think, I'm working really hard. Why isn't anything working? And there's some issues. So when that happens, and when we spin our wheels, and when we look down at our instrumentation, we realize something's wrong, right? And when I say that, that's when you kind of do a checkup from the neck up. Have you ever stopped and thought, am I good here? Kind of those moments when you have to see how you are. And it may be you notice something and you may have to pull over and pop the hood. And this is something that 75% of the people won't do. They'll pull over. They got AAA. I'll just wait for them to come fix it, right? They know something's not working, but they don't really want to care about it. But are you willing to pop the hood? I am. And I found this when I did it. This is the engine, of course. This is the thing that drives us, because the instrumentation is just feedback of our engine. And we could look at our instrumentation and blame it, right? Or we can pop the hood and see what the engine. So this is a V8 engine, 4x4. Those are pistons. They drive like this in unison. If one's off, the whole thing loses power. And our RPMs are going to be redlining when we really don't need to be redlining. We could be, more comfortable. This is an i6 engine. Remember, every car is different. Every engine's different. Or you could be a Lamborghini with a V8 or a Lamborghini with an i6. Who knows? This is a boxer engine. These are in the Lamborghinis. This is when the engine is in the back of the car, right? These are the people fancy. They just do things a little differently. We all know one person like that. This is a simple motorcycle engine. You could look at the big, V8 and say, oh yeah, that's the better engine. But if you put that on a motorcycle, you're flying down the road just as fast. So again, it's how you use it. This is a simple Yarda 2-stroke engine. But think about all the things you use that for, how helpful it is. And yeah, if you look at it, compared to the Lamborghini right next to it, well, yeah, obviously it's not going to hold a candle, but you can't do yard duty with a Lamborghini. It's just not going to work. And just like how some people, you're able to call and say, hey, we just had our Zoom crash and people are going crazy. What can we do? We need your help. I'm sure Alex redlined earlier today. Betsy redlined. I was about to redline. We all hit our limit. And it was crazy. It's a very weird feeling. And maybe, Betsy, who doesn't really know a lot of stuff with Zoom, right, wanted to help, but she very well could be, a tractor trailer trying to do something that a Lamborghini could, and you look at something like this, and it just doesn't fit. It just doesn't make sense. And people will know it as soon as they see you. You can't hide it, and that's when you feel found out. Right? But it's really not a negative, oh no, they found out, right? I'm exposed, and we have these negative feelings. No, you're just using your engine for the things it's not really geared to do. So what is it geared to do? Let me break it down, because your engine's different. You decide what drives you. I have a V8 engine. That's high performance. That's 8 pistons are driving me. But that means that I need 8 pistons to be going in unison. And here are my 8 pistons. This is what I need for my engine to be running at max performance. Am I well rested? Have I eaten and drank recently? Do I understand what I'm doing? Do I take pride in it or enjoy doing it? Because I don't enjoy taking out the trash, but I take pride in the cleanliness of my house. Do I have other support? Maybe I don't need it, but it's good to know that it's there. Is there mutual trust and accountability with the people I'm with? Because if that's there, I will go to the end of my rope. I'll redline for all day, every day. Have I recently talked to my loved ones? Have I recently listened for God? Now, those are my 4. You can decide what your 6 or your 2, or, if you want to put them in the back or the front, if you want it to redline all the time, never, sometimes, that's your decision. But being a human being, being a Rotarian, it is your obligation to check your instrumentation, redline as often as you can, and if things go wrong, pull over, pop the hood, and check your pistons. If you don't know what your pistons are, well, that's where you start. What are your drivers? What are your quote-unquote motivational anchors? So I implore you all to redline whenever you can. Find the thing that makes you redline. Come to terms, come comfortable with redlining and comfortable with pulling over and popping the hood. That's usually where the most progress will be made, because like every car is different, every person's different. You just got to use it the right way. So that's my speech right there. That is an example of a Toastmasters speech. I will say in a real Toastmasters setting, they will have someone who, I'll leave this up while I kind of explain. During the speech, there will be a whole other person called the counter, who will be counting out all of my non-dictionary words. So, yeah, all those. There's a grammarian. And this is for every Toastmasters speech, where they'll be going over my vocabulary. Usually they recommend a word of the day that I'm supposed to use. And then there's a timer, so they would have counted that one right there. The counter would have, keeping me on time. And then there's an overall evaluator. So every person at Toastmasters has the ability to come, give a message prepared, get kind of structural feedback from specific roles. So I'm doing this one thing, and then they have an overall evaluator who, like I said, giving my goals, would critique me, evaluate me on kind of the visualization, the inspiration, and all that stuff. So thank you for listening. I really do recommend that you kind of pop the hood and look at your engine and know what your pistons are, and ask people around you. I don't think it really matters what age you are, because everybody wants to go somewhere. So now I want to kind of transition to Toastmasters. This is more of the structural information. This is how you guys can do it. So these are all of the different Toastmasters clubs in the greater Boston area. So as you can see, there's an abundance of, or I guess there's an abundance of opportunities. They also have, all these different pathways. So this is what I was talking about. So I'm in the top right. My learning path is motivational strategies, and that's kind of what I followed. Once you reach the end of this path, you become a recognized like Toastmaster. There's a word for it. I'm blanking on it. But once you become proficient in 2 pathways, that's when you become a distinguished Toastmaster. So you can kind of do that. I see a lot of Rotarians doing it in like team collaboration, strategic relationships, visionary communication if you're trying to make a huge change with some people, and maybe like effective coaching for higher up leadership. And if you're a person who wants to kind of get into a leadership position, this is like the clearest way to like show interest. Like imagine saying, I always say this to people like my age who are always trying to like go to the next role, but imagine instead of asking for a promotion or kind of like nudging like, oh yeah, like I want that thing, just kind of like gently bringing up to your manager of like, oh, by the way, I became a Toastmaster in effective coaching or dynamic leadership. And it's just kind of like a passive way to get better that you can use however you want. And the way that So that's the way you can use Toastmasters, the way I use Toastmasters is youth, athletics, in a professional setting, helping with presentation skills, but also just speaking at a team meeting. I think sometimes is kind of like the most basic form of public speaking that is like getting run into the ground, especially with Zoom. I think it's people of the younger generation, it's like a huge area of growth because I can notice, you know, older older individuals are much better at speaking in front of like a group of peers. Um, so that's what I have today. That's pretty much everything I had planned. I'm gonna break for questions, and then I'm also gonna send I'm gonna a link in the chat that you can fill out for it's kind of like a Google sheet, so you can click it, and it's got a questionnaire. If you want to get updates about Toastmasters, there's Rudy is the district director. I'm the area director, so it's kind of the same way that Rotary is. So we can match you up that way. And yeah, I don't know, Alex, how you want to divvy up questions, but I'm ready to field any as you'd like.
Connor, thank you so much. I've definitely felt the red line tonight. There's no question about it. And it has been a year full of red lines. So I like how you put it that way, because sometimes I just say my head is banging against the wall. So now I'm just going to say, okay, I'm red line. I'm red line. So the team knows Betsy's checking out. So does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask Connor? Connor, how did you first become introduced to Toastmasters?
So it was within my company at Oracle. So it was just during lunch, and I think me and a friend, Kristen Silvestri, who is the former president, decided like, hey, let's go check out this Toastmasters thing. I heard they serve free lunch. And we went there and we thought it was cool. And I gave an intro speech, blacked out completely. I don't even remember what I said. It was like 6 minutes of just noise. And I liked it. They kind of brought me with open arms. They just, saw my energy and really kind of sanded the rough edges and helped, kind of build me into a better speaker.
Well, we can use your energy at a Rotary as a Rotary member too. So don't forget us. Anyone else?
I have a quick question. What was the first car that you had?
We called it the Golden Cav. It was a gold Chevy Cavalier. It was given to me by Gabe Dean, who had given up on it. It had 2 dents on the left side, 1 dent on the right side, and the windows never worked. And one time I was with my friend Mackenzie, and we were gonna go see my sister in Cortland, which is like a neighboring college. And right as we were getting on the way there, it started raining and my windshield wipers didn't work. And it started raining. We were like driving, we were like, yeah, it'll work. I can peek out the window. And then it started like really raining, and we were like, we gotta turn it on, it's not working. But yeah, that was the first car I really called mine. I write sometimes, but I wrote a thing called PT Loser, which is the time when I slept in my grandmother's PT Cruiser for about 2 weeks during those 3 years in high school where I was kind of jumping around. But I've had my fair share of very interesting experiences with cars. My dad, that 55 Chevy thing, he really did have, and he really did cry when he sold it. So I really learned all about cars with him as like a metaphor. That speech was basically like 10 years of kind of teaching that my dad had given me, condensed into like 5 or 6 minutes, as best I could, of course.
So you redlined on quite a few cars before you get to the point you are tonight.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Push it back as much as you can.
Thanks. That was great.
Thank you, Mary Beth.
Sarah has a question. Sarah Fury. She's asking, is Toastmasters more for people with no speaking experience, or can confident speakers join as well?
Yeah, no speaking experience is needed. Like I said, like I came and, word vomited for my first speech, and it was, that's one end of the spectrum. And then, there's the other end where, so we do this thing called table topics. where at the end of each meeting, we kind of open it up where you can pick from a panel of kind of conversation starters and or prompts and give shorter 90-second responses. So we like to have people who are a little like unsure to just come and see how it works, and then start with a couple table topics, get comfortable there. And then the first one is just an intro speech, which is, everybody should be all right to like introduce themselves. But no, you don't need to be a professional speaker or confident in any way. In fact, I would say if you're not confident speaking, that's when you could come to Toastmasters. There's a lot to be said about just the mere exposure to seeing your peers and people around you speak a lot, being inspired by your peers, and also, just wanting to do the same for yourself, and eventually realizing that like there's nothing different from you and them, right? There is no have or have not in this situation. It's just will or will not. So I definitely would encourage you, if you feel like this is something you would like to do, then do it.
Great.
And I put the form in the chat, so feel free. And then that way I can try to like connect you with different people in Toastmasters, and that's how I can get everybody here who's more interested in kind of following up on it.
Perfect. Well, if there are no other questions, I think we can go to our breakout rooms now that we're safe. Hopefully the breakout rooms will be safe. So for those of you who signed in a little bit late, if you could just go in and rename yourself and put an A or a B in front of your name. A will be for membership breakout room, and B will be for the transition during COVID breakout room, and then the wonders of technology, meaning Alex. Will get us to the appropriate rooms. So just give it a couple of minutes to get in those rooms, and we'll gather at the end. Thank you, Connor.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
I'm gonna open the breakout rooms in a minute, and then those people who have not yet changed their names, I'm gonna ask them personally where they will want to go, and then we'll hopefully get everybody in there. Okay, here we go. Breakout rooms are opening.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rotary District 7930 Retain and Gain District Membership Plan breakout session. My name is Sarah Fury, and I'm a member of the Boston Rotaract Club. And with me is Corey Jackson, who is the past president of Rotary Club of Peabody, and we're here to talk about membership. So on our agenda today is the alternate forms of membership, new membership forms, and also diversity, equity, inclusion, the importance of it right now in 2020, and being more inclusive in our clubs in our district. We also want to talk about club development and culture. We're going to talk about creating new clubs, also satellite clubs, which is a nice option for clubs. Where to get membership leads from the district, from your own clubs, from Rotary International, and then our new partnership with Toastmasters, and a little bit of time for Q&A. So first up, I'd like to talk about alternate forms of membership. The world is so crazy right now. There's so much bad going on with COVID-19 and everything else in the world today, but there's this one silver lining that the world has brought us together virtually. And so we can be socially distant, be in our homes, and be on our virtual club meetings with our Rotarians. And so Rotary has created this new active member called the virtual member. And this means that anybody, this new member, can join a Rotary club even if you're not in the same location. And so we really encourage you to reach out to your former members, maybe members who have moved to Florida for better weather, or they've just moved in general and they feel like they're a part of your club, but they're not technically a member anymore. This is a great way to bring in interactors or Rotaractors, anybody maybe who's left the district, and bring them back in as a member, bring them in as a special guest to a meeting, show them what your club has been up to, and show them about what they can do as a virtual member. They can also join in on any of these following categories like service, corporate, senior active, etc. So diversity, equity, and inclusion is so big. It's so important today in 2020. We would like our district to be more inclusive, and we're of course hoping that the clubs take this seriously and try to make their clubs more inclusive as well. We've had a district diversity, equity, and inclusion committee for about 3 years now. This year they've gained much more members and have a new website. And so it's really important to go look at their website. It's on the next slide, actually. You'll be able to write it down. They have LinkedIn learning courses. They have diversity videos. They have information from Rotary International directly. They have little like inclusive and unconscious bias tests. It's just a great resource to have, and we're so lucky to have that in our district. So here are a few options for things to make your club more diverse, equitable, and inclusive. Number one, making it more affordable to be a member. As a Rotaractor who hopes to be a Rotarian someday soon, I'm looking for a club that has the same values I have, but also a club that I can join financially. A club that knows that doing good is more important than having large dues, which could be very off-putting to prospective members. So I even encourage age-based dues, something where, you know, if you're under 40, you have to pay less dues than everybody else, knowing that it's a financial hardship when you're a young professional, or possibly excluding meals, knowing that I can come to your club and pay dues like a regular member, but don't have the added fee every meeting of meals or drinks or something like that is just so nice. Also, we'd like to redefine what it means to be a professional. When Paul Harris started Rotary, he had all these categories for lawyer, doctor, and it's really, Rotary is turning into not being that way anymore. We're being much more inclusive, and we want to redefine what it means, that professional word, because we want students to be involved, we want retirees to be involved, and so we don't need someone to come from a certain profession in order to be a Rotarian anymore. We also want to think about replacing isolating traditions. So sometimes some traditions can be very off-putting for guests and prospective members. Some traditions work really well for clubs. I know that some clubs love their fines. They think it's really funny and cute. And if it works for them, then that's great. However, for some guests and prospective members, the idea of fines might not be so funny and cute. And other traditions like praying or singing can be outdated now. And a younger person might not want to join a club that has those traditions. So we want to try to replace them with more inclusive ones. We also encourage you to think about hosting an unconscious bias training. So we all hold these unconscious biases in the things we say and we do. And so having a training, especially if you can try to get a speaker or a video training session that you can play at your Rotary Club meeting, is so important, just to be able to re-recognize what we're holding, what we're thinking, and just be better, more inclusive people. We also want to create more opportunities for mentorship, whether or not it's in a structured or unstructured way. I know at my past Rotaract clubs, we always have had that if there's a new guest who comes in, that we assign a mentor right away to that guest so that they have someone to go to. It's really good for the Rotaractor or the Rotarian in this case to have that mentorship opportunity, to be a leader, to be an ambassador to the club. And it helps the person who has questions and wants a buddy system when they're coming into the club. We also want to create opportunities for leadership training and development. Rotary International, people don't just come to just do service or come to just do fellowship. They're coming for the big package of what Rotary provides. And one of the things that Rotary provides is leadership training and personal and professional development. And so we want to encourage you to offer these opportunities to your members who are very interested in these things, especially young professionals who are interested in joining. We also encourage you to collaborate with other service organizations within the community. Not only is this just a good thing in general to collaborate with other service organizations and nonprofits, But let's say you want to do something that's more a diversity, equitable, and inclusive event, or you want to do an event around DEI, then maybe join in an organization that's already doing work like that. You make new friends, possibly gain new members, and do a nice service event. So here are just a few things to consider. Like I said before about being a young professional, I know that I could never attend a lunch meeting. It'd be very hard for me with a 1-hour break to be able to drive to a meeting and miss part of the meeting. And so that would be really difficult for me as a young professional. And it's not always the case, but most young professionals don't have that flexibility yet. And so we encourage you to reconsider the time of day when you meet. Is it too early? Is it too late? Is it time for when young kids are going to bed? And so, younger people who are putting their kids to bed around 7 or 8 can't come to your dinner meeting. So we just want to encourage you to just check the pulse of your club, rethink your timing, survey your club. Has it been good for members? Would it be good for being inclusive and getting more members? So just rethinking that. Also, we want you to think critically about your club speakers, making sure that you ensure diverse voices on a wide variety of topics, and maybe even consider a DEI speaker. We actually have, as a district, a DEI webinar coming up on October 29th at 6:30 with Dr. Bowtie Todd Jenkins, who's going to be talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so, because it's virtual, even though he lives in Arkansas, he's able to talk with us. And so think about getting a speaker from anywhere now that we have virtual meetings or hybrid meetings, and have a speaker talk about DEI topics. Also, if you're doing all the right things and you're being inclusive and you have a diverse club, don't be scared to share that on your social media platform. It's kind of cringy when you just see all these older white men with checks on their social media. Social media needs to be a place where you market your club as a diverse club, as a club with all different genders and races, and you're doing different activities and you're just enjoying your club and having fun. That's how you want to market yourself. So for more information on DEI, please go to their website here in this last bullet for more resources. So I'd also like to talk about club development and culture. There sometimes is a disconnect between how we see ourselves and how we are seen by others. So sometimes we are seen as old-fashioned or an old man's club, and we want to really just take this into a very modern place. We want to market our Rotary Club as we think we are, which is hip and cool and fun and flexible and vibrant. These are really important ways to market Rotary and your Rotary Club. We want to give ourselves that reality check to see how our club is doing. Does our club meet that criteria of being flexible and vibrant and not having those old traditions? So these are 10 action items. Some of them I've already touched upon briefly, but we want to relook at remaking our traditions if we think they're old-fashioned. We want to update our lingo, the way that we have our elevator pitch. How are you marketing Rotary when you meet someone that has no idea what Rotary is? Are you saying it in a way that is inclusive, making your club diverse, making your club look vibrant? And even during your meetings, avoiding acronyms. So making sure that any visitors don't feel excluded by any of the language you're using. We kind of say DG, DGE, DGN, DG, everything. And so, are they confused by all these titles? And it could be just very off-putting. Also, don't be afraid of social media. Really don't be afraid of it ever. It's not going away anytime soon, and it's a great way to market your organization. We want to rethink about reducing the cost of membership or doing age-based dues, providing flexible attendance so that maybe you don't have, if you miss a meeting, you have to remake it, or maybe you can remake it as a service project. Make your club feel personal. It's really important, because we're just a human-based club, to Hang out with your club members, and if there's a personal birthday, if there's an anniversary, let's celebrate those little things that make our club a person organization. Let's think about assigning mentors, either as a structured program or unstructured. And this meet and don't repeat means that don't just have bland meetings that have the same kind of start and stop every day. And, you know, think about adding a cocktail hour in there once a month, or think about adding a service project to the middle of your meeting. With Boston Rotaract, sometimes we make sandwiches in the middle of our meeting for homeless shelters that take them. So just think about being flexible and adding some fun to your meetings. Going mobile is really important, just kind of like the social media. You'll want to be where your club is. And so if your club members are on the phone, if they're texting, if they're on email, that's where you want to be, and that's where you want to be marketing your information. Also, we're more than just those trifold brochures that we give prospective members. We want to be up to date. So let's try to be giving prospective members our emails, our websites, our social media accounts to get them engaged, and it gives a personal touch. And just to remind everybody this stat here with the youth exchangers, that 98% of all text messages are being read versus 20% of email. So the importance there of meeting your members where they're at. If they are texting, then text them the meeting information, the meeting reminders, etc. And there are a lot of text-based apps that will do mass messages to people. So definitely check that out if you're interested. And now I'd like to turn it over to Corey.
All right, thank you, Sarah. A lot of good information there. Definitely start typing away in that chat if you thought of anything as you were listening to that. The chat button's right at the bottom of your screen. Anything that you have changed in your club that has worked or hasn't worked, we'd love to hear about it. And we can talk more about that in the question and answer session, but we don't want you to forget anything, so type it in the chat. So let's talk about creating new clubs. Experience in other districts and zones has shown that it's not just about your existing club and making sure that you're retaining your members. It's about thinking outside the box and really thinking about what kind of a club could be created that would be a new opportunity for new Rotarians. During the previous Rotary year, for example, we started creating an alumni club for RILA, Interact, and Rotary Youth Exchange alumni. So a lot of members kind of age out of those programs, aren't really ready for the Rotary Club in their town or city, and this can be a great opportunity for them. We really need your help in determining new areas that maybe the district could take on to start them as satellites as your club, or start them as new clubs. Another focus that we're thinking about is cause-based clubs. So think about the Rotary's newest area of focus on the environment, and how that could be an interesting Rotary club for new members, younger members, people that are passionate about a specific cause. And that's just one example of many that we know and care about as Rotarians. So satellite clubs are extensions of your host Rotary club. A lot of you have satellite clubs. Think about not having to create a charter, not having to create a constitution, not having to create bylaws. They can offer flexibility to members that might not join your traditional Rotary club. So you only need 8 members to start a satellite club. Satellite clubs can meet at different times and locations. So part of the DEI stuff that Sarah was talking about earlier could be accomplished with a satellite club. Look at larger corporations in your community. Maybe you have a Centennial Park like in Peabody, or an industrial park, big healthcare institutions, hospitals, colleges, universities. Think about these as opportunities for Rotary clubs to start within that company. Look at areas within your community or adjacent, maybe that don't have a Rotary club, maybe a town bordering yours that doesn't have a good presence, doesn't have a Rotary club. That could be a satellite club of yours as a host. And once a satellite reaches more than 20 members, then they have the option to upgrade to a full Rotary club. So they do have that ability once it gets that size. It's not required, but there's the ability. Some examples, I know Lynn had a lunch club and has a satellite club as a breakfast. And that has brought in a lot of new membership, a lot of younger members, a lot of members that just can't get away at lunch for an hour or two to go to a Rotary meeting. And it was a lot cheaper because they were meeting in, I think they were meeting in a conference room and somebody was bringing Dunkin', whatever, and it just became much more accessible to a bigger group of people, whereas the lunch was not. That's one example. I know Burlington has 2 members now that actually live in India, and they're trying to build that up to 8 so they can start a satellite club in India. So that's a total out of the box example of how you can use your club and your connections, maybe even internationally, to bring new Rotarians into the fold. Okay, I want to talk about membership leads and how that process works, just so you're familiar and you know when this comes across your inbox, what it is, why it is, how it happened. So Rotary International has a join button on their website, and now our District 7930 page also has a join button. Those join buttons can be clicked, they fill in their information, and that information is going to come your way as either membership chair or president-elect. Make sure that you really take in that information and react to it accordingly. It's been vetted, the person's usually been talked to, we've figured out, you know, do they want to be in a Rotary club close to their work, or do they want to be in a Rotary club close to their home, or do they have, you know, interests in one of our special out-of-the-box clubs. Think about adding a join button to your club page as well. If everybody that's on this call, all 21 of you, go back to your clubs and get a join button on there, I guarantee you'll see a lead or 2. People are going to your pages for either your events, or maybe they're going after they had a great time at an event of yours. There's a very obvious join button. You don't even have to do anything, just link it to the district join page, and we've done all the work for you. But you can create your own form if you want, and that will help you to bring in leads on your own. So again, I just want to say, you know, make sure that when you get those messages from the district membership committee, that you really react to those in a timely manner. And if you can't, for whatever reason, just let us know, and we'll make sure we touch base with that person. Okay, we heard from Connor earlier today, and thank you, Connor, for joining us. Toastmasters, great partnership initiative at the Rotary International level between Toastmasters and Rotary. And this is about enhancing our skills as Rotarians and bringing the Toastmasters into our service projects. I think there's a lot of great opportunity here. Connor's map showed you kind of the greater Boston area out towards Burlington, but the clubs go everywhere. I know there's one in Peabody. There's some more on the North Shore. I'm sure there's some in the Merrimack Valley. Figure out where those clubs are, because really, even though this is the Rotary International initiative, the work has to happen in our clubs. We have to connect with our local Toastmasters club. And the goal there is to try to make these connections and see if we can bring some Toastmasters in as Rotarians, and maybe some Rotarians can get some skills from becoming Toastmasters. So it's a really great symbiotic thing that we can make happen. And every town and city has an opportunity here. So definitely check that out. Connor just put the link to find your local club.
Yeah,
Invite
could I
them
add one caveat to that, Corey?
Yeah, please.
Sorry if my audio is bad, I don't have my headset, but we also invite Rotary members to create their own club if they'd like. That is an option, so don't feel like you have to find a club to join. I myself am trying to create kind of like a Toastmasters group and a Rotary like lunch group that I know you guys do, because I've got a group of like 30 wrestlers that practice from 9 to 11 on Sundays. So I'd love to have them come in for lunch and then get these kids becoming public speakers. So new initiatives like that, what I'm trying to say, you can create a club also. Yeah,
that's great. I mean, think about your Interact clubs and how much they need in this space. Thank you, Connor, for that. And definitely reach out to that Toastmasters club, get them in as a guest speaker, invite them to join as members of Rotary. and find out all about Toastmasters and if it can be of value to you and your members. Toastmasters created a set of 8 structured communication and leadership courses for Rotary. Those have already been made available at the Rotary Learning Center at myrotary.org. So check that out as well. That might give you a little bit more knowledge about what kinds of things they cover in Toastmasters and where you can grow in your skill set. Okay, so that was it. We have our contact information on here. We're about to take questions, but Alexander Falk and Peter Majane are our 2 co-chairs of the district membership committee. You heard from Sarah and I just now, and our emails are there as well. And I believe I just saw David Hart comment, so he's on as well if we have any questions that you want to ask the district diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. So we're going to open it up now for questions or discussion. Just make sure you unmute. All right, any thoughts? What are your clubs doing in any of this?
I'm Patricia Sullivan from the Marblehead Harbor Club, and a couple of times it's been mentioned about keeping a low membership dues structure. And I'm wondering, is there an average cost of membership across our district? We're trying to see if we need to alter our dues.
So I think what we're really saying is think about the other costs associated with the membership, like the meals. If you have, do you have a lunch or a breakfast club?
We're breakfast, but we've been on Zoom since March.
Yeah.
So that's not the meals isn't the issue right now.
Right.
Does the district keep a any kind of
like a average of what all the clubs are charging?
Do the clubs tell the district what their dues are so
No.
that we know what other clubs are doing?
Peter,
Peter,
you have
Peter.
something to say.
Yeah, Patricia, what a lot of clubs are doing, especially with their service members, at a minimum, they're charging the RI and district dues, which is about $125, $135 in that range. It changes every year. And they're also adding a bit of an override for, club runner expense and things along those lines. The clubs are saying the fees for service members, it could be $150, $175. Burlington Breakfast just instituted $180 for service members. Yeah, and so the clubs are deciding, not the district, Patricia.
Oh, I understand that, but I didn't know if the district kept some kind of a record of what each club was charging.
No, we don't.
No,
We don't believe so, no.
no, it's a club decision.
And for
Club
service
decision.
members, do you have any kind of a time limit on that? Like you can stay as a service member for 6 months and then you have to switch over, or do you stay as a
Well,
service member?
again, it's just a title because you're a full Rotarian, and the club will decide, is it 50 hours a year, 30 hours a year of service, things along those lines. If they want to visit an actual in-meeting when we can meet again, and they want to buy lunch, that's $10 or $15. That's up to the club, the service member, if you will.
Right.
But don't get the title as a disclaimer of what they actually are. We're all Rotarians, and it's up to the club to make that determination, not the district, Patricia.
I understand that, but I'm just asking what other clubs do.
Well, as I said, there's a lot of clubs that have the service members: Ipswich, Burlington, Breakfast, Winchester. You can reach out to their
Reading.
clubs and see what they're charging. I'm sorry, what?
What's Reading charging, Lisa?
Oh,
Reading has it. Reading charges $120.
Oops. Did she cut out?
Okay. Oh.
And does anyone have a reduced membership cost for like nonprofits, or we have a strong ministerial group in our town. Do you have anything like that in your areas?
Well, I know Burlington, I mean, Boston 7 at one time, and they may still have a nonprofit fee, which is reduced. And again, it's club specific. Yeah, and again, but I know I keep on getting back to that, Patricia, but you can charge whatever you want to whatever types of service members you need to, or nonprofits, or ministerial, you know, things along those lines.
Let's let other clubs chime in to give Patricia more ideas. Is it Ami?
Ami. I'm with the Rockport Rotary Club, and to answer Patricia's questions, first of all, our dues are $175 a year. It's the same for, we don't have service category, we just eliminated it. And the reason behind it is because the way we saw it is service category offered people the opportunity in adhering to Rotary's old attendance requirements. It offered people the opportunity to still be Rotarians, but not be obligated to once a week, meeting 60% of the time and makeup and all that. And there's no need for that any longer. So, you know, simple. I like the KISS rule, keep it simple. And so we eliminated service. There are members just like in name and title and duties as other members of the club. The problem that we are having is that we live in a small community that has Rotary clubs all around us. And over the last years, we've become stagnant and we're losing membership, both through natural causes and people are moving. And our community is about a third of our community is summertime only community. And I'm racking my brain, I'm the membership chairman, how to get these people involved in our Rotary Club as members. And I checked with Rotary International and they couldn't come up with a good answer telling me how can somebody belong to two different clubs. I am one of these part-timers. I'm 6 months in Rockport, 6 months in Houston. And I have a club in Houston that I transferred my membership to Rockport. But I'd like to, when I'm in Houston, to attend there as a member. Be a good thing if we could attend, if we could be members in more than one club in Rotary.
Does anyone know the official rule on that?
Yes, I do. It's unfortunately not possible right now. You can be a member of a Rotary club and a Rotary club at the same time. But within Rotary, you can only be a member of one club. I'm sorry.
But he can go to as many meetings in Houston as he wants.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I did in Houston is I just informed them of what's going on, and they said, oh, we're going to treat you just like a member of the club. You're invited to all functions and all. And I just go to a meeting every week. I want to tell you guys what we have done recently is totally revamped our membership application. It was old and outdated. There were questions there that are just totally irrelevant. And we have instituted a red badge program, which I adopted from other clubs and modified to our club needs. That goes back to inclusion and retaining. In other clubs that I had to go through that program, you have to do certain things that will bring you into the club and make you meet members of the club and assimilate you into the club a lot faster, and therefore you will be retained, because I've seen people come into the club as new members, just sit there, and then they just disappear because they just kind of like nobody adopts them. And we have a new member in the pipeline. I'm hoping to see more. Zoom is a killer. It's difficult, but we're building a base for when Zoom is finally over, we'll be able to, and social media. Well, we have great presence. Andy was in the group, but he had to leave. We started to have great presence in social media, and we're getting great response from it.
About diversity? Oh yeah, Bob, what do you have to add? Unmute.
Thanks, on me.
Thank
you.
There you go.
It's too bad.
I was just going to add to Ami. point. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Point there that there is some clubs that that you want to attend. I mean, would invite you as an honorary member. You can do that, and so you can be an active member and an honorary member in another club if they invite you to do that. That's my situation right now. I'm out in Central Mass now, but I'm still an honorary member in Ipswich. So, and they've invited me to be that, and I'm actually pretty active there. I do help with PR there, and I do other things there. So that may be an option for you, possibly.
Mary Beth?
I was just going to say, it's too bad there can't be some kind of like seasonal membership, because like I go to Florida, not as long as some people, not for the whole season, like some people do. But when I have visited the clubs down in Naples, I do find that there are a lot of members who are from Maine or, other parts, Wisconsin, Minnesota, other parts of the country that are visiting members, yet they do seem to be, there in Florida for maybe like 6 months. It's just something that we might want to consider in terms of, especially now when we're doing so many Zoom meetings and hybrid meetings and whatever, if this is going to be the wave of the future, which I think is not necessarily a bad thing, even if we overcome this, terrible situation we have medically, I think it might be something that we would want to consider. Maybe Peter Simonson can talk to us about that at some point, or Julia Phelps or someone, that it just might be a way to bring more people in. I mean, more people are global nowadays than provincial.
So this is the breakout room is gonna end in about 45 seconds and bring us back to the main room, but we can continue this conversation at the end of the main session. Alex or Peter, do you have anything you wanna add as co-chairs before we sign off?
Well, thank you, Sarah and Corey, for your presentation, and I'll see you guys all in the main room in 15 seconds.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, David.
Thank you. It was great.
Thanks, everybody.
Amazing.
Wow.
Well, that went much smoother than I thought.
It did, but how do we know when everyone's in? I guess we'll just.
I think we just have to wait a couple minutes, Joan. We have 15 people in the room right now, and I think we're waiting for Terry. She's supposed to be the last to. Oh, Terry's already here. She was our. So I think we can.
I think that's it. All right, I'm gonna share my screen and share and get to here. Hold on.
Oh, slideshow.
All right. Well, welcome to Transitioning During a Pandemic. What amazing ideas will you inspire next? And I want to thank Betsy Manzelli to present with me. So we're going to go through the presentation and then have time for questions at the end. So, wow. All right. Who knew? COVID, right? Embalming, and that's a new one. I'm going to add that in there. So it makes me proud to be part of an organization that's not stopped in its track due to this pandemic. What better organization to demonstrate leadership and the ability to remain active and relevant than Rotary? Paul Harris said, the story of Rotary would have to be written again and again. And yes, that's exactly what each and every one of you is doing. So what does it mean to pivot? It means to make alterations, adjust, turn, improve, modify, reshape, revamp, reorganize, to name a few adjectives. So this session will explore pivoting and how Rotarians can continue to meet this challenge head on.
We're laying on our deathbed. You're not going to worry about how much money you had, how much power you had, how much prestige. You're going to see that that was all game, that that was all an illusion. The only thing that's going to matter is the impact you had on other people's lives.
We are all on a separate journey. But the beautiful thing about our life here on this earth is at my funeral, they ain't gonna talk about my success. They're gonna talk about who Nick was and how Nick lived and how Nick loved and encouraged.
Success is incredibly important, but even more important than success, it's having an impact. It's knowing you haven't walked the planet in vain. It's knowing that because you've been here, you've blessed lives, you've developed people, and you have made the world a better place. The effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is. Everything you gain in life will fall apart, and all that will be left of you is what was in your heart. Life is a mirror, and life gives us not what we want. Life gives us who we are. When you were born, you cried while the world rejoiced. Live your life in such a way that when you die, the world cries while you rejoice.
Wow. For that, always chokes me up. Betsy and I always talk about that as we practice this speech, and it really speaks to our hearts as Rotarians. Our community and the world needs Rotarians now more than ever. We have the collective power to make change and leave lasting impacts for generations to come. So we need to continue to pivot and do the great work that is so needed during this pandemic. So let's delve a little more into pivoting. Pivoting is a change in strategy, but it is not a change in vision. While our world has been turned upside down and our lives have been upended, our vision as Rotarians remains the same. We are here to serve and make the world a better place. Thus, we need to shift from traditional ways of doing things to offering new ways of accomplishing our goals. Right now, we have two choices. We can just survive, or we can choose to succeed and commit to staying focused on our goals and our vision. Betsy and I have the greatest faith that you will all choose to succeed, that you will engage your clubs and communities and seize the opportunities during this pandemic. By adopting a digital mindset during COVID and this crisis, you won't be caught off guard, and you'll be able to move forward with your service, your fundraisers, and continue to make that impact in your communities. Leadership right now takes on a different tone. Our new role as leaders is to empower Rotarians and reassure them that while change is hard, consistent adaptation is the new norm. Helping them see differently is important during this time and for the future of Rotary and the future of your club. Remember, strategy is the key. Be clear about why you need to pivot and not to go dark, and how the club may need to modify its strategy and options as state mandates shift and change. So let's talk about meetings. I love this little pants option for that little baby on Zoom. Healthy clubs, whether large or small, meet regularly, even during COVID times. I want you to remember that your weekly meeting, or if you just meet monthly, whenever you meet, that may be someone's entire Rotary experience at this time. This is also a great time to try new things, to use what works and drop the rest. You don't need to hold on to tradition if it doesn't work for you anymore. Consider changing the frequency of when you meet, or the day and the time. Change it up. See what's right for your club. Don't be stale. try new ways of doing things, and be that flamingo of change.
Okay, hi everybody. I just want to check in with you and see how your course planning is going.
Oh, it's great so far. I got the foundations classes up and running.
Okay, really? I can hear you. Your mic. There's a button. Look. Yes, you did. Here, Joe. What do you got?
I found a website that has some really good information on
Can you share your screen, Joe? Do you know how to do that?
Do you see anything yet?
No.
How about now?
No. One more.
How about now?
Yeah. Oh.
There it is.
That's not it. Hang on. It's one of these. That's not it.
I would love to see your internet history. Hey, listen, I have a good handle on all this Zoom stuff, so
Okay.
mute my video.
Great.
They don't know anything about this stuff, do they? Come here, you little bitch.
I can still hear Rick.
You stink.
Oh, not like right here, there's a microphone thing that, oh dear.
Hey, honey.
Okay. I'm gonna go. We're gonna go.
Did you have a boo-boo in your boo-boo?
So I don't know about you, but I've certainly seen some of those, not all on Zoom meetings. So just make sure you know how. And we saw that tonight, right? Through our encounter, which I hope we never experience again, quite frankly, because it was not funny. But things happen on Zoom, so know what you're doing. And when you talk about a meeting on Zoom, recognize that the goals remain unchanged. Effective meetings have the same criteria, whether they're in person or remote. Utilize your tool. Make it feel like you're meeting in person. Require video so you can see everyone. Type the name on the video. Ban the mute button to start for fellowship, but limit your chat and make sure you press the mute button once you start your meeting. And remember, adapt your behavior. And you certainly can go back to what you've done in person, but you can also change that up. There's so many opportunities meeting in Zoom, although it is hard sometimes because I think we all miss that personal in-person touch. Meeting formats. Identify ways to make your online meetings more dynamic and fruitful. Always be cognizant of state guidelines, as well as being sensitive to the needs of all members. Many of us have underlying conditions that may make it dangerous for us to meet in public. So please consider using hybrid meetings as a solution if you start to move to meet in public. This also allows snowbirds to remain connected to your club. We have a few in Ipswich that go down to Florida, and we've been seeing them all the time, which is wonderful. Make sure you have an agenda and stick to it. Consider themed meetings, wearing your favorite hat, having fun, interactive props, my flamingo here, and to support retention and to help those who may be more isolated, consider virtual coffee dates. And record your meetings so that people who can't attend can still remain connected and can view it later. If membership on Zoom declines, survey why people have stopped attending. Is the meeting too disorganized? Is it a free-for-all? Is one person monopolizing the conversation? Do you have interesting speakers and programs? Remember, digital learning experiences can be a hero during this time. And in terms of fellowship, fellowship is a cornerstone of Rotary. And I know we miss that fellowship right now on Zoom, but being digital offers a lot of opportunities for fellowship that we never had before. If it wasn't for COVID, the Corks and Caps Wine Fellowship that we started in our district wouldn't have happened. My fellow past district governor in District 7790 and myself started this wine fellowship together during COVID in May. We kind of broke the recommendations that you have one fellowship per district, but who cares? And there's no Rotary police. And so we went on Zoom and we started a wine fellowship across 2 countries and 3 states. We have been meeting since May every month, the last Sunday of every month, if anyone wants to join us. And it's been incredible. We've had attendance of 30 to 40 people on that Zoom meeting every single month. And we have just been meeting new friends and new Rotarians. And we even invite non-Rotarians. I also know the Salem Club had a wine tasting on Zoom. They had club members go to Total Wine, pick the wine up, go back home, and they did it over Zoom. So what a fun way to have fellowship. And other clubs have had joint meetings with clubs overseas and making those incredible connections. So use this technology during this time to change your direction and lead you to that success. Think outside the box and don't let the pandemic get in your way. It's time for us to shine in ways we never thought possible. And I'm going to turn this over to DG Betsy to continue the presentation. You're on, Betsy. On mute.
Mute yourself. Me and the mute button.
There you go.
They're not my friend. So I'm just going to talk to you about a few things that I know club presidents and club members are really worried about during this COVID time. And I know that I've talked to a few people during the course of the time of the presidency starting, and I know during Joan's year as well. You know, service projects, that's something that we all love and is true to what Rotary is for us. And just remember, you don't need to think big all the time. We're so proud of our clubs that are stepping up and finding out the specific needs in their communities. Talk to those people on the front line, whether they are teachers, city or town workers, food pantries and community centers, and ask what the needs of the community are that need to be addressed. And small projects can make a really big impact. You know, right now we're getting ready for the election, and there are a lot of places that need people to work the polling stations. You could consider bringing breakfast, lunch, or snacks to the schools for the teachers that are in the school physically and need to you know, have something during the day and it's to show a thanks and support for them. Offer to tutor students that are learning remotely. There are a lot of kids that are not going to school full time right now, and having an extra set of hands or somebody that has a specialty will be able to help them. Stay in tune with the needs of our local food pantries. The food insecurity issue is going to be here, unfortunately, for a while, and it's important that we continue to support those in need. Check in with your council of aging groups to see how Rotary can support our community elders. Some of us were making phone calls during the beginning of the pandemic just to make sure that our elders that weren't able to get out were still having connections during that time and have their needs met. You can always clean up the roads and community garden areas in preparation for winter, and that will support the new area of focus environment. So there are lots of little projects that will make big impact. Share these with other clubs. Talk to other clubs and find out what they're doing. Another big issue is fundraising, and I know that all of us are dealing with that. So lots of clubs are coming up with new ways to implement old ideas. Don't think you can't do your project that you used to do because it's not the same way. I know in Hamilton Wenham, we did a raffle, and it was very successful. I know that Manchester Essex also did one, and Burlington Breakfast is doing one, and it was much easier than we anticipated. Think outside the box. Try something new. It's either going to do really well or it's not, and that's okay. Share with the other clubs your successes. Talk to your neighboring club presidents if you're here, but even members. Talk to other clubs and find out what they're doing. Be creative and make it fun. I think that's, you know, that's really important, and make it powerful. Again, a a small idea can make a big impact. We'll go to the next one, except that I lost it. There it goes. So I want you all to, be very open and focused on different ways of fundraising. I want to share, Ipswich has a great fundraiser they're doing right now, the Opoly game. They've been working on it. And I know they sold all of the pieces and the board spot markers very quickly, and now are producing a Monopoly game for Ipswich and Rowley. And that was really outside the box thinking and went much more, it was very successful, and they weren't really anticipating that. Well, they weren't sure. And I totally lost my space. What a surprise. And Belle Isle is doing their, tried and true cow plop coming up soon. And I think that that's been successful. Other clubs are doing, selling masks, having online auctions. So there are lots of ideas out there. Share with one another. We're all here to support each and every person. So I'm going to turn this over to Joan, because
okay, I think there was a slide that you wanted to talk about on collaborating.
Oh, the collaboration, but yeah, it's really important right now. We can all collaborate with one another, especially with Toastmasters. Rotary International has set that up, and Toastmasters is a great way for us, as Connor said, to learn and to, support one another. And all of us in service organizations need to support one another. Besides Toastmasters, reach out to your local Chamber of Commerce or the small business organizations or other service clubs like Lions or Kiwanis. We must be open to the opportunities that are right in front of us. We all want to do what we can to serve our communities during these challenging times. I think it's important, we're all struggling right now to keep the excitement and the energy up to support our communities. And I know that other service organizations are having the same issue, so let's all do it together. We can get through this. Do what you're passionate about.
Thank you, Betsy. I think, it's really important we mean this as Rotarians. Again, through Betsy and I feel very strongly that this is a moment for us all to shine. Rotary needs, we need Rotary, and the world needs Rotary, and they need us more than ever now for all of the things we're able to do in our community. So we're going to open it up to questions. I'm going to stop the share or just dialogue. I think Betsy and I would really like people to share ideas. I know there's a lot on fundraising. I know there's a lot on service. So let's open it up. I'm going to stop the share. And if you want to unmute yourself, and if you want to just kind of raise your hand, and we can acknowledge you or put something into the chat room. I don't know if, is Cushing still here? Cushing, do you want to speak more on the Ipswich Monopoly? We've, as everyone has struggled on fundraiser, our major fundraiser was slated to be in October, where we typically raise about 15,000 on our masquerade ball.
And in April at our half marathon, where we raised over $30,000
wow.
for the club.
Wow.
So
we had to, we had to cancel that this year. And we've had discussions among the committee, Ted Garside, race director, who's an honorary member, which we made him an honorary member of our club due to his volunteer work at the half marathon. We're discussing next April. So that, again, it's unlikely that'll happen, but it's already, we're kind of already resigning ourselves to that that's not going to happen. So to Joan's point, we're thinking about the alternatives. And the Ipswich-Opoly, the Ipswich-Rowley-Opoly game had come up because Ipswich had done that, I believe, back in the 80s. They had Ipswich-Opoly. And I don't know who came up with the seed to plant for the Ipswich-Opoly, but it took right off. and we sold out the squares, the corners, the center of the board. We also did the Rotary, the masks with the Rotary logo on it. This was spearheaded by a wonderful fundraising committee, Julie Nelson and Dottie Levesque. Joan, I believe Lisa perhaps had been in on that, but
Yes.
she's serving like as a co-president with me this year. So they're coming up with ideas for October, like a drive-in movie we were coming up with using the Crane Estate on the beach in the municipal parking lot. But the cost of the equipment, and there's no rain date. You're out a lot of money if it doesn't, if it rains. So we had no insurance for the downside. So that isn't something that we went through with. We canceled our plans to do that. But I guess the point being, the underlying point being, is that we continue to meet regularly, and these ideas are being tossed around. We are thinking outside the box because the conventional fundraisers, the get-togethers, the breakfasts, we're encouraging members to submit at their discretion, perhaps funds to the club because they aren't spending them at the breakfast meetings. We have Venmo accounts that were set up for people who want to pay their dues, make a contribution, that sort of thing. So we're doing what we can, and I must say the fundraising committee is meeting regularly, and they are talking about ideas I would have never come up with. So it's better that I serve as president and leave the brains to somebody else in the club. But it's working really well because, as Joan said, the Masquerade Ball, which was a huge fundraiser together with the half marathon, the two of them together netted $45,000 to the club. And fortunately, through proper budgeting, for scholarships and other expenses, we've always funded a year in advance so that we have I don't want to make it all financial, but certainly the club is supported by, forward thinking. But yes, outside the box is certainly being tossed around with some of the ideas the fundraising committee is coming up with.
Alexander, do we need to, how much time do we have?
We're trying to discern this right now.
The other session hasn't even started Q&A yet, so they definitely need 10 minutes at least.
Okay. Keep the conversation.
You got conversation going here.
Yep.
I think it's awesome. Who else would like to share? I'm putting Arthur on the spot. Marblehead, what have you guys been doing?
Okay, I'm unmuted. So, Marblehead, basically, in order to maintain membership and make the Zoom meetings interesting, we've put a lot of effort in getting speakers week to week to week. And the idea, particularly for younger members, Rotary spends an awful lot of time, which I've picked up on trying to inspire people. There's a little bit of, and I call it, I'm calling it pluck and luck, internally, when I describe it to speakers, that basically young members want to hear about lives that had some pluck early on and some luck that gave them a career. So I asked all the speakers to focus on their lives a little bit, as opposed to what we know them for, so that they get to understand how they got to where they are. And that seems to be working in terms of an interest area. I was very lucky early on through a mutual friend, actually. I was able to get Phil Rucker, who's the Washington bureau chief of the Washington Post, to come. And we've had a lot of good speakers, with the help of Alexander setting some of them up, some of the people I know. For example, we have the executive director of the Cabot Theater coming up to talk about all the kind of, he's been there for 5 years, all the ins and outs of that. They're a major contributor to all of our community in terms of our involvement. So we focus very heavily on that as a backbone to keep the membership active. And we've had pretty good luck with that. We've kept basically all of our members and added 5 since. So we're larger than they were even in the Zoom world. We're focusing a lot of our fundraising efforts on reducing what we expect of ourselves. For example, Marblehead's Got Talent, which we haven't committed to yet, usually raises gross about anywhere between $35,000 and $40,000. We're probably going to reduce it and get rid of the auctions and all that part of it, because we don't need the money per se, but we don't want to lose the consistency with our relationship with the high school and those kids that get the scholarships. So I'm trying to get my Marblehead's Got Talent committee to focus on doing it online, working with the AV department in the high school, because that's the way you're going to have to do it, and coming up with a different format so those kids won't be deprived of the opportunity to get scholarships for pursuing arts college educations or specialty summer programs as well. That's my hope. I'm not 100% sure I'll be successful at it. We've been looking at other things we might be able to do. For example, and this is again in discussion phases. I purchased recently a whole series of frisbee golf goals, and for our New Hampshire house, so that people could do it. They're not that expensive, but I got 4 of them, and then I thought to myself, gee, what if we were to go up, outdoors in the spring to Corrine's horse farm, and in the barn, set it up there and have teams, joining in and spending, $250 to $500 per team, and they compete with each other in the open, in the kind of the open atmosphere, kind of thing.
Maybe Ipswich can join you since our
Yeah,
farm.
that's that kind of thing. So that was an idea, and of course, Joan and Betsy, that about our involvement with Chelsea, which raising money for providing a service dog, and we're pretty close to concluding this for a child who's happens to be in Chelsea, and that's and for that, basically we almost raised all the money on the night of our meeting. So and we're close. Assuming the district grant comes through, we're basically there. And it was a wonderful meeting with the child happens to be. I couldn't have packaged up a nicer marketing package with the mother and child. I mean, I didn't prep them to be so cute, but they turned out to be unbelievably cute. And as a result, everyone opened their wallets. So I have to actually give them the attribution, for raising the money. And another thing that we've taken an opportunity to do during this period of time is to fix ourselves administratively. We've been operating in a kind of a administrative model that dates back 30 years. I mean, we're all manual still. Everything is manual, and we had the unfortunate event, and of course the person who's been handling our tax return for like 25 years, and he didn't ask our permission, but he passed away. So now I got to find a new accountant, and no one will do it unless everything's in QuickBooks and properly done, which makes sense, and so we're actually going through re-examining ourselves internally, because we have the opportunity, because there's so many changes going on. Nobody's going to fight you that much.
Right.
And so that's another thing we're doing in Marblehead. So it's keeping everyone very energized.
And I think it's really important for us to remember that, the ways that we used to do things may not be the best way to go forward. And we are at a time that we can re-examine, like you pointed out, Arthur, what needs to change within our individual clubs.
You got to balance not hurting people's feelings as well as moving forward.
And I think that that's the hard part, right? Because we have, and I totally understand that. And, we have been trying to make small steps over the course of the last, how long is this pivot we've been asked to do?
It's been March, right? It's been March.
Years? Right.
But feels like March of 2001, but it's
that's
part of it too is being, trying to remain lighthearted about everything.
Exactly.
So Carl Siegel, who many of you know, was our treasurer. I said to him, Carl, you may outlive me, but you're not going to outlive our young members. We've got to fix this. And he agreed. He said, I've been doing this for 28 years. I said, only 28? I thought you were good for 30.
Tom, I'm wondering, Peabody Club, and please, everybody else, if you want to jump in. But I think I just remember when this all happened in March, that the Peabody Club had their taste of the North Shore.
That's right, yeah.
And they immediately, not a step was missed. They moved it online, and they brought in 20,000 Thursday?
Yeah, it was right about that. Yeah, fortunately, Corey was the president at the time. He's an entertainer in his background, so he was able to really make it a fun event. That he did a lot of the raffles and everything live on a Facebook live event, and we were able to make around 20,000. But we're trying to look at other different options now going forward, probably like smaller type ways to raise some funds. We did a trivia night, and we're looking to do some more things like that. Just because I don't think we're going to be able to have that big of an event to get that kind of money for the scholarship, but we want to still continue to keep pushing at it though.
Who else would like to share? Suzanne, anything from TBM or Kathy or Adria or anyone?
I think one of the things that we learned is people are willing to jump in and help if it's giving to another cause that we've partnered with, not just for Rotary, but we raised money for the food pantries in the Tri-Town. And that was a big success. I think in hindsight, we probably should have kept a portion of the funds for Rotary Club because we have zero fundraising right at the moment, which typically we would have our main fundraising event in October, which is our Fall Foliage Classic, which has been around forever. And everybody chose to put it off until next year, not even run it virtually. So I think that's been a little bit of a challenge. I hope I might be able to convince them otherwise as we move forward. But, just combining our efforts for the food pantry or finding other organizations really helps right now during COVID. So I think, as moving forward, that's what we're going to try and do is focus our efforts a little bit on helping the community and hopefully help build our membership through that.
Awesome.
Oh, great thing. It's so hard when we're losing these big events that we're used to having and trying to, do it a different way. I know Hamilton Wenham's is doing their calendar again and Gloucester's doing the same thing. And actually that is easier in some ways to continue doing because we can do that person to person, right? We don't have to do it in a big group. So,
and then
Karen, I know that you're going to pull it off, and you're going to do it with all the heart and energy that I know is in there. So if there's something I can do to help you with that, please just let me know.
And then I think, Karen, you guys are still going to do a different version of your Chalk on the Walk, right? You just announced that?
Yeah, every year we do a Chalk on the Walk. We're doing it 20-something years in Harvard Square in the first weekend of May, and we are trying to do it virtually. We're just, people are gonna, instead of Chalk on the Walk in Harvard Square, it's Chalk on your walk. And you take a picture, you do it in your sidewalk and take a picture, and we're gonna post it virtually.
Awesome. Who else?
How are you going to monetize that?
Well, combination of, we're asking, well, we have a which is new, a children's version where it's $20 to put your children's picture in there. And then we're just going to our donors that have done it before and asking them to contribute.
Kathy, I think you had a comment.
Yeah, Rockport is just going to start on Tuesday discussing a possible scavenger hunt after Halloween.
I think we have to leave the breakout room in a minute. So we have a minute.
So a scavenger hunt, that's a great idea, Kathy. I was actually brainstorming about that in my brain the other night at 2 o'clock in the morning.
The local Cape Ann Time Bank did one, and I'm going to get in contact with them and see how they organized it. And I know they had a raffle that went along with it. So
awesome. We have about 30 seconds. Essen, am I saying your name right? Anything you'd like to share? You have to unmute.
Yes, it's a great pleasure to join your group today.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you. And of course,
and we are back together again. Boy, sometimes that freaks me out. I'm sorry. I show my reactions. I can't hide them. Thank you, guys. We had some great conversation going in the transition for COVID room. I'm sure membership was equally as informative. I want to take the opportunity to thank Alexander Falk for all of your technology. You and Corey run a great ship, even with our crazy Zoom bombing, in which I'm still not over, and I think I'm going to have a bottle of wine when we're done. And I want to thank our contributors, you know, Terry, our DGE, Terry Curran, Corey Jackson, Sarah Fury, running the membership. I can't wait to see the recording. And of course, IPDG, I have such a hard time saying that, Joan Arsenault, for running the transition during COVID session. I hope you all learned something new and informative and that might be helpful to you. Remember, we are here to assist all of the clubs and have a successful year. I wish you all well, and I want you to stay safe. Now, I'm going to take a commercial break and have a couple of announcements. See, I added that in and nobody knew. I want you all to mark your calendars for October 29th. The DEI committee has a great speaker that you're all really going to want to hear. You got a notice in the e-bulletin. You'll be hearing a lot about this in the next 3 weeks. Dr. Todd Jenkins, or as some of us know him as Bowtie Todd, will be presenting Moving from Diversity to Inclusion, Opportunities for All. You want to hear Dr. Todd speak. He is inspiring. He knows what he speaks about. Please join us on October 29th. And also, I'm reminding you all that you want to be a member of the FOB Club. It's a very exclusive club. And in order to become a member, you need to make your annual fund donation before the end of November. And I moved the deadline because I won't be done with my club visits until around that time. So if you want to go and make your annual fund donation, and I can see who's donating, you will receive a special little gift from me so that you'll remember me always in the future. And it's just really important for us to remember to support our foundation, because that money comes back to us for the annual fund, the share. So please consider making your donation early. And I thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you all in the future, hopefully in person, and not like the Brady Bunch. But it was great to have you all. And anyone have any big questions?
You're a rock star. You're a high RPM performance redliner. That's what you are.
That red line, that's going to be, you know, that's going to be my thing from now on. Thanks, Connor, for putting that in my brain.
Yeah, of course. And I put the link again if you want to
Thank you.
Sign up for Toastmasters. If you do, my club is meeting next week, so I'll invite you to our meeting next week.
Great, thank you.
Welcome to join, just to kind of see how it looks. If you want to know like how this whole thing works, I have no problem with just packing our Zoom with as many Rotarians as we possibly can. So everyone is welcome, and the way to sign up so that we don't have what happened today happen is on that form. So feel free to click that. Thanks.
Thank you, Connor. Boy, that was a big lesson learned, right? We can always learn. It doesn't matter how old we are. David, you missed that excitement. Thank you again, everybody. Have a great weekend. I miss you all.